The champagne tasted bitter in David Reynolds' mouth as he watched the alien delegates celebrate around him. Humans had waited 300 years for this moment, and now it felt wrong somehow. The massive crystal hall on Coriolis Prime sparkled, with lights from a dozen different worlds, each representing a species that had found peace under the Galactic Federation's rule. "Your species shows remarkable potential," Chancellor Vorthak said, his three eyes studying David with an intensity that made the human captain uncomfortable. The Trilarian's voice carried the mechanical precision that marked his kind, each word calculated and measured. "We have watched your progress with great interest." David forced a smile and raised his glass. "Earth is honored to join such a distinguished alliance. We look forward to learning from our new friends." The words came easily, rehearsed from months of diplomatic training, but something in Vorthak's expression made David's military instincts scream warnings around them. The other Federation species mingled with practiced ease. The towering hegemony warriors stood like living mountains, their rocky skin reflecting the hall's crystal lights. The graceful singers moved through the crowd like dancers, their melodic language creating a constant background harmony. Each species had their place, their role, their carefully defined boundaries within the Federation's perfect order. "Tell me, Captain Reynolds," Vorthak continued, moving closer, "what do you believe makes humanity special among the stars?" The question felt like a trap, but David answered honestly. "We adapt, we never give up. When faced with impossible odds, humans find a way forward." He thought of the generation ships that had carried his ancestors to the stars of the colonies, built on hostile worlds through sheer determination. "Yes," Vorthak's smile revealed rows of sharp teeth. "That is precisely what concerns us." Before David could respond, the hall's lights dimmed and a holographic display materialized above the crowd. The image showed Earth in all its blue and green beauty, rotating slowly in the darkness of space. David felt pride swell in his chest, followed immediately by confusion as red markers began appearing around his homeworld. "Citizens of the galaxy," Vorthak's voice boomed through hidden speakers, "today we welcome humanity into our order. But we must also address a growing threat to our peace." The hologram zoomed in to show Earth's orbital defense platforms, the pride of human engineering. "This species has shown concerning levels of aggression and unpredictable innovation." David's blood turned to ice. "What is this? What are you doing?" The other human delegates throughout the hall began moving toward each other, their faces showing the same growing alarm. Admiral Torres, Earth's military attaché, was already reaching for her communicator, but the device remained silent. "For 800 years, the Federation has maintained peace through careful balance," Vorthak continued his speech. "Each species contributes according to their nature, accepts their limitations, and finds contentment in their assigned role. Humanity threatens this stability." The holographic display shifted to show human technological advancement over the past century. Faster-than-light drives improved every decade, weapons that surpassed Federation standards. Most damning of all, recordings of human conflicts where impossible victories had been achieved through tactics no other species would attempt. "Your people refuse to accept defeat," Admiral Korthax of the Hegemony spoke for the first time, his voice like grinding stone. "You innovate beyond rational limits. You inspire dangerous ideas in others." His massive hand gestured toward a group of younger aliens who had been studying human culture. "Already your influence spreads?" David realized with growing horror that this had never been a celebration. Every human in the hall was now surrounded by Federation security forces. The friendship treaties, the cultural exchanges, the gradual integration, it had all been an elaborate trap. "We offer humanity one choice," Vorthak announced. "Submit to genetic modification that will calm your aggressive instincts and limit your innovative capabilities, or face the consequences of your refusal." "Never!" David's voice cut through the hall's suddenly oppressive silence. "Humanity will never surrender what makes us human?" Vorthak's expression didn't change, but his three eyes blinked in a pattern that seemed almost sad. "We hoped you would be reasonable. Your species' reputation for wisdom appears to have been greatly exaggerated." The holographic display changed again, now showing Federation fleets moving into position around Earth, hundreds of ships, each one larger and more advanced than anything humanity had ever built. The orbital defense platforms that had seemed so impressive moments before now looked like toys in comparison. The quantum isolation field is now active, Admiral Cortex reported with mechanical efficiency. No hyperspace travel or communication is possible within the Sol system. Earth is completely cut off. David watched in helpless rage as the first bombardment began. Pinpricks of light appeared around Earth as Federation weapons struck the orbital stations. Each flash represented hundreds of human lives, defenders who had no idea they were fighting an impossible battle. "You're monsters," Admiral Torres whispered, her face pale as she watched her homeworld burn. "We trusted you. We came here in peace. Peace requires sacrifice," Vorthek replied. "Some species are too dangerous to exist unchanged. History will understand our choice, even if you cannot." The other alien delegates watched the destruction with expressions ranging from approval to what might have been regret. None spoke in humanity's defense. None questioned the Federation's judgment. They had all learned their place in the grand order of things. David felt something break inside him as the bombardment intensified. The Earth his children called home was dying before his eyes, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. The Federation had planned this perfectly, had used humanity's own hopes against them. "Security teams will escort our human guests to their quarters," Vorthek announced. "They will remain there until the containment operation is complete." As Federation guards moved toward the human delegation, David made a choice that would haunt him forever. "Computer!" He spoke to his ship's AI through his neural implant, hoping the signal could somehow penetrate the interference. "Emergency Protocol 7. All human vessels, immediate evacuation to predetermined safe points." The guards were almost upon him when the hall's lights flickered. Emergency alarms began sounding throughout the station as explosions rocked the docking bays. His ship's crew, following standing orders, had activated the self-destruct sequences on half the human vessels while using the others to escape. "You see?" Vorthek's voice remained calm even as chaos erupted around them. "Unpredictable to the end. This is why humanity cannot be allowed to exist unchanged." David smiled grimly as Federation security forces dragged him away. "You should have killed us all when you had the chance. Now you've just made enemies of the most stubborn species in the galaxy." Through the hall's massive windows, he could see his ship Defiance limping away from the station, its hull scarred but intact. Somewhere in that damaged vessel, the handful of humans who had escaped carried with them the truth of what the Federation had done, the last thing David saw before. The guards hauled him from the hall was Earth, still burning in the holographic display. But even as his world died, he held on to one thought that gave him strength. Humanity had survived worse odds before, and they would survive this too. Somewhere in the darkness between the stars, his people would endure, adapt, and plan. And when they returned, the Federation would learn that betraying humanity was the worst mistake they could have made. The Galactic Federation had just created their most dangerous enemy, and they didn't even know it yet. 75 years had passed since Earth burned, but Maya Okafor still remembered the taste of real oranges. She pressed her weathered hand against the observation window of her laboratory, watching Titan's orange methane clouds swirl below the hidden base. The irony wasn't lost on her that humanity's greatest sanctuary was named after gods who had been overthrown. "The scanning array is picking up movement at the system's edge," her assistant Leo reported from across the cramped laboratory. His generation had been born in the hidden colonies, raised on stories of a blue world they'd never seen. Same pattern as last month. "Federation monitoring station is running their regular sweep." Maya nodded without turning from the window. The aliens still maintained their watch post, convinced they were guarding the tomb of an extinct species. They had no idea that beneath Titan's surface, in hollowed-out asteroids, and scattered across a dozen hidden bases, nearly 2 million humans continued their existence in the shadows. "Any word from the outer ring?" Maya asked, referring to the generation ships that had escaped during the chaos of Earth's fall. Those vessels had been humanity's lifeboats, carrying precious cargo beyond the reach of Federation sensors. Tom's group found another derelict Federation patrol ship last week. Leo replied, his young face lighting up with excitement. The engine core was intact. That brings our fleet up to 17 captured vessels. Maya smiled at the boy's enthusiasm. Tom Silva had been a military engineer before the betrayal, one of the few survivors who had been off-world when the Federation sprung their trap. Now he trained the young ones in ways their grandparents never could have imagined. Spaceborne humans were different from their earthbound ancestors, harder in some ways, more adaptable in others. Tell Tom I want to see the quantum drive specifications, Maya instructed. I think I've figured out how to modify their isolation field technology. For decades, Maya had been reverse engineering every piece of Federation technology they could acquire. What the aliens saw as impossible innovation, she understood as simple necessity. Humans adapted because they had to, not because they chose to. The Federation's greatest weapon against humanity had become humanity's greatest teacher. Her computer chimed with an incoming transmission from the asteroid belt colonies. Director Walsh's face appeared on the screen, his expression grim. Maya, we've intercepted something you need to see. Federation long-range communications, sent 3 days ago. The message was in Trilarian military code, but human computers had cracked those encryptions years ago. Maya's blood chilled as she read the translation. They're planning an expansion into the Outer Rim territories, she whispered. Resource. Acquisition for something called the Harmony Protocol. There's more, Walsh continued. They've detected energy anomalies in our system. Traces from our reactor signatures? They think it might be some kind of automated defense system left behind by humans, but they're not taking chances. Maya's hands trembled as she scrolled through the intelligence report. A full Federation battle fleet was being assembled, led by Admiral Cortex himself. The same butcher who had overseen Earth's destruction was coming back to finish what he'd started. How long do we have? Maya asked. 6 months, maybe 7 if we're lucky. The fleet won't move until after they finish their current operation against some species called the Melodians. Maya's heart skipped. The Melodians are still fighting? Not for much longer, from the sound of these reports. The Federation is calling it a cultural correction. Same pattern as us, but they're trying a different approach. Forced relocation, instead of outright extermination. Maya stood up slowly, her mind racing through possibilities. In 75 years of hiding, humanity had learned terrible truths about their supposed galactic community. The Federation's peace wasn't built on cooperation or mutual respect. It was built on the systematic elimination of anyone who might challenge their sterile vision of order. Patch me through to all colony leaders, Maya ordered. Emergency protocol. It's time for the Great Gathering. Within hours, representatives from every human settlement were linked through quantum-encrypted channels. Faces appeared on Maya's screen from across the solar system, each one marked by the hardships of hidden survival. These were the children and grandchildren of refugees, raised on stories of betrayal and dreams of justice. Tom Silva's scarred face dominated one section of the display. Behind him, Maya could see the interior of the converted cargo vessel that served as humanity's mobile training facility. A ghost fleet is ready, he reported simply. 43 operational ships, all running silent and equipped with the new phase drives. Phase drives? Maya asked. Based on your isolation field research, we can step partially out of normal space, become invisible to their sensors for short periods. It's what they used to trap us, turned into our salvation. Director Walsh leaned forward in his transmission. The asteroid colonies have enough supplies to support a long campaign, but Maya, are we really talking about what I think we're talking about? Taking the fight to them? Maya looked around at the faces on her screen, seeing hope and determination where once there had been only desperation. The Federation thinks they eliminated a problem 75 years ago. They're about to learn that they created something much worse. An enemy who knows exactly how they think and fight. What about the Melodians? Asked Rachel Kim from the Outer Ring colonies. If they're still fighting, maybe we're not alone in this. That's exactly what I'm thinking, Maya replied. Tom, how quickly can we modify our long-range communications? To penetrate Federation jamming? Give me 2 weeks, Tom answered without hesitation. The captured ships have the encryption keys we need. Maya nodded, feeling something she hadn't experienced in decades: hope. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to contact every species the Federation has marked for extinction or relocation. We're going to offer them something they've never had before, allies who understand what it means to be hunted. The transmission fell silent as the magnitude of Maya's proposal sank in. They weren't just talking about survival anymore. They were talking about revolution? The Federation Council believes humanity is extinct, Maya continued. That gives us the greatest advantage possible. Surprise! We've spent 75 years learning to be ghosts. Now it's time to become nightmares. Tom's grin was visible even through the poor transmission quality. The young ones have been asking when they'd get their chance to see the stars beyond this prison. I think you just gave them their answer. Are we sure about this? Walsh asked quietly. Once we reveal ourselves, there's no going back. No more. Hiding, its victory or extinction. Maya thought of Earth, of the billions who had died trusting in alien promises of friendship. She thought of the children born in hidden bases who had never seen a sunrise, never breathed unfiltered air, never known what it was like to live without fear. The Federation taught us that some things are worth fighting for, Maya said finally. They're about to learn that freedom is one of them. As the transmission ended and the colony leaders began planning humanity's emergence from the shadows, Maya returned to her window overlooking Titan's alien landscape. Somewhere beyond those orange clouds, the Federation monitoring station continued its lonely vigil, unaware that their greatest nightmare was awakening in the darkness they thought they controlled. The age of hiding was ending. The age of reckoning was about to begin. Admiral Cortex stared at the tactical display with growing confusion. His investigation fleet had been in the Sol system for 3 days, and something was very wrong. The energy readings that had triggered their mission were getting stronger, not weaker, and his ships were reporting equipment malfunctions at an alarming rate. Status report, Cortex demanded from his flagship's command center. The massive hegemony warrior had overseen Earth's destruction personally, and returning to this graveyard of a system brought back memories he preferred to keep buried. 2 more patrol ships have gone silent, Admiral, his aide reported nervously. Their last transmissions indicated engine failures, but our long-range sensors show no debris fields. Engine failures don't make ships disappear, Cortex growled. What about the monitoring station? Are they still reporting normal readings? That's the problem, sir. The station went dark 6 hours ago. We sent a scout ship to investigate, but it hasn't returned either. Cortex's rocky features hardened into an expression of grim determination. In his centuries of service to the Federation, he had never encountered anything like this. Ships simply didn't vanish without a trace, especially not in a dead system, where nothing should exist except frozen wreckage. Bring us to full alert status, he ordered. Deploy sensor drones in a spherical pattern around the fleet. I want to know about every piece of space dust larger than a pebble. What Cortex didn't know was that Alex Park was watching him from less than 1,000 kilometers away. The human commander floated in the pilot seat of his modified fighter craft, its hull shimmering with the same technology that had once imprisoned his people. The phase drive allowed his ship to exist partially outside normal space, invisible to Federation sensors but able to observe everything they did. Ghost leader to all units, Alex whispered into his communications array. The big fish is getting nervous. Begin Phase 2. Around the Federation fleet, 30 human ships began materializing from their dimensional hiding places. Each vessel was a hybrid of human engineering and captured alien technology, designed for one purpose: making the hunter become the hunted. The first strike came from above. 3 human fighters dropped out of phase directly behind Cortex's escort cruiser, their weapons already charging. The Federation ship's shields were designed to stop conventional attacks, But human weapons had been modified with one advantage. They operated on principles the aliens had never encountered. Contact. Multiple ships materializing around the fleet. The communications officer shouted as alarms began wailing throughout Corthex's flagship. Impossible, Corthex snarled, watching as his escort cruiser's shields collapsed under the strange energy barrage. There are no ships in this system, we confirmed it. The escort vessel tried to return fire, but the human fighters were already gone, phased back into dimensional hiding. Seconds later, they reappeared in a completely different position, striking. Another Federation ship with surgical precision. Admiral, we're detecting at least 40 unknown vessels, the tactical officer reported, his voice cracking with stress. They appear and disappear at will? Our targeting systems can't lock onto them. Corthex watched in growing fury as his supposedly superior fleet was being picked apart by an enemy that shouldn't exist. Open a channel to all ships. Concentrate. Firepower on any target that appears, regardless of size. Sir, we can't target them effectively. They're using some kind of dimensional displacement technology we've never seen before. Then use area weapons? Saturate the space around us with plasma charges. The Federation fleet began firing blindly into empty space, hoping to catch the phantom attackers by chance. It was exactly what Alex Park had hoped they would do. Ghost. Squadrons, they're going to area bombardment, Alex transmitted to his scattered forces. Switch to pack hunting formation. Time to show them what happens when you corner a human. The human fighters began working in coordinated groups, using their phase capability to appear simultaneously around single Federation vessels. Each attack lasted only seconds, but the damage was cumulative and devastating. Federation ships found their weapon systems disabled, their engines crippled, their communication arrays destroyed. This is impossible. Corthex roared as another of his cruisers went dark. No species in the galaxy has this technology. Admiral, his science officer said quietly, I'm reading quantum signatures that match theoretical models for dimensional phase technology. But according to our records, only the Federation Council has access to those principles. Corthex's three eyes widened with sudden understanding. The isolation field technology. Someone reverse-engineered our own weapons. His voice dropped to a whisper. But that would require decades of research and innovation capabilities that only humans, Alex Park's voice suddenly filled the Federation flagship's bridge, transmitted on all frequencies simultaneously. Hello, Admiral Corthex? Remember us? The bridge fell silent except for the sound of alarms and the distant explosions of dying ships. Corthex stared at the tactical display, watching as more Federation vessels fell to the ghostly attackers. You're dead, Corthex said finally. We saw your world burn. We confirmed the extinction. You saw what you wanted to see, Alex replied. Turns out humanity is harder to kill than you thought? We've had 75 years to plan this reunion, Admiral. We've been looking forward to it. On the tactical display, Corthex could see that half his fleet was already disabled or destroyed. The remaining ships were clustered together, in a defensive formation that was proving completely useless against an enemy that could appear anywhere at will. What do you want? Corthex asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. Information, Alex replied. We want to know about every species you've marked for extinction. Every world you're planning to correct. Every innocent civilization you've decided is too dangerous for your perfect order. The Federation will never negotiate with terrorists. Alex's laugh was cold and bitter. Terrorists? We're the victims, Admiral. You declared war on us first. We're just returning the favor. Another Federation ship exploded in the distance, its reactor core overloading after precise strikes to its power distribution network. Corthex realized with growing horror that the humans weren't trying to destroy his fleet quickly. They were demonstrating their superiority, showing him exactly how helpless he was. You have one chance, Admiral, Alex continued. Order your remaining ships to power down and prepare for boarding. We're going to take everything in your computers, and then you're going to carry a message back to your Federation Council. And if I refuse? Then you join the ships we've already destroyed. Your choice. Cortex looked around his bridge at the faces of his crew. These were experienced warriors who had served the Federation faithfully for decades, and now they were terrified. Of an enemy they couldn't even see properly? What message? Cortex asked finally. Tell them humanity is back, Alex replied. Tell them we've learned some new tricks during our time in the shadows. And tell them that every species they've oppressed now has allies who understand what it means to fight impossible odds and win. As Federation ships began powering down around him, Cortex realized that the galaxy was about to change in ways the Council had never imagined. The humans hadn't just survived their attempted extinction. They had evolved into something far more dangerous than they had ever been before. The hunters had become the hunted, and the prey was more than ready to turn the tables on their former predators. The underground city on Melodia Prime hummed with an energy that hadn't existed in decades. Where once the artistic species had hidden in fear from Federation cultural inspectors, now they worked alongside human engineers to prepare for the impossible. Rebellion against the most powerful force in the galaxy. Alex Park studied the holographic battle plans, while listening to the musical conversation between his human technicians and their Melodian counterparts. The aliens' language was literally song, each word a note in elaborate melodies that somehow conveyed complex technical information. It had taken weeks for the translation programs to adapt. The harmonic frequencies are perfect, Lyriel sang, her crystalline features sparkling with excitement. Your phase technology resonates with our quantum matrices in ways we never imagined possible. Dr. Maya Okafor, now serving as the Coalition's chief scientist, nodded approvingly as she reviewed the test results. Each species the Federation tried to suppress brings something unique to our alliance. The Melodians' understanding of quantum harmonics, the Builder's architectural knowledge, the Wanderer's navigation skills, and humanity brings the one thing the Federation never expected, Alex added grimly. The absolute refusal to accept defeat. The Coalition had grown beyond anyone's wildest dreams. Word of humanity's return had spread through hidden channels across a dozen star systems, reaching species that had been forced into compliance or marked for elimination. Each group that joined brought new capabilities and a burning desire for freedom. Status report from the Kepler front, Lieutenant Beth Anderson announced from the communications station. The young officer had been born in the hidden colonies, part of the generation that had grown up knowing they were at war. Builder Engineering Corps has completed the mobile fortress at the asteroid field, she continued reading. Wanderer scouts report 3 more systems ready to join the Alliance. And we've received confirmation that the Trilarian defector has successfully delivered the intelligence package to ourselves in Federation space. Alex smiled at that last piece of news. Leth was a young Trilarian scientist who had become disgusted with his people's role in galactic oppression. His decision to join the Coalition had provided invaluable intelligence about Federation military capabilities and political structure. What about the quantum virus project? Maya asked. Any new intelligence? Anderson's expression darkened. Leth confirms it exists, something called the Harmony Protocol. It's designed to rewrite the genetic code of any species, forcing them into what the Federation calls cooperative compliance. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. The Federation wasn't content with simply eliminating troublesome species anymore. They wanted to turn every free-thinking being in the galaxy into docile servants. How long before it's operational? Alex asked. Unknown, but Leth believes they're accelerating the timeline because of our activities. They see the Coalition as a direct threat to galactic stability. Maya stood up slowly, her aged face showing the weight of terrible responsibility. Then we need to accelerate our timeline as well. How many systems are ready for simultaneous uprising? 17 confirmed, 12 more possible, Anderson replied. But Alex, they're asking for proof that this isn't just another doomed rebellion. They want to see that we can actually win against Federation forces. Alex looked around the room at the faces of the Coalition leadership. Humans, Melodians, builders, wanderers, and representatives from half a dozen other oppressed species. Each one had risked everything to be here, betting their people's future on the slim chance that united they could overthrow their oppressors. "Then we give them proof," Alex said finally. "We hit them where they least expect it, where they think they're strongest." "You're talking about Coriolis Prime," Maya said. It wasn't a question, the Federation capital. The seat of their power. "If we can strike there and survive, every oppressed species in the galaxy will know that the Federation can be beaten." Lyriel's song took on worried tones. "The defenses around Coriolis Prime are legendary. No enemy force has ever penetrated the outer system, much less reached the planet itself." "No conventional enemy force," Alex corrected. "But we're not conventional. We're the nightmare scenario the Federation never planned for, their own victims working together." Over the following weeks, the Coalition marshaled its forces for the most audacious military operation in galactic history. Human stealth technology was combined with Melodian quantum harmonics to create ships that were virtually undetectable. Builder engineering created mobile fortresses that could construct defensive positions in space within hours. Wanderer navigation provided routes through regions of space the Federation had never properly mapped. The plan was complex but elegant in its simplicity. Multiple Coalition fleets would emerge simultaneously throughout Federation space, forcing them to divide their attention. Meanwhile, a strike force led by Alex himself would penetrate Coriolis Prime's defenses using a combination of captured Federation credentials and their own technological advantages. "Remember," Alex addressed the Coalition commanders during their final briefing, "this isn't about conquest. It's about liberation. Every Federation world we reach, every species we free, becomes part of our strength. We're not trying to replace their empire with our own. We're trying to prove that empires aren't necessary at all." The first phase began when Coalition forces emerged from hyperspace in 17 different systems simultaneously. Each group targeted Federation garrison forces and administrative centers, but their primary mission was to broadcast a simple message: freedom was possible, and help had arrived. On the industrial world of Rigel 4, builder engineers revealed hidden weapons caches they had been constructing for decades under Federation oversight. On the cultural center of Harmony Station, Melodian artists filled the air with songs of liberation that inspired thousands of previously compliant citizens to open rebellion. Meanwhile, Alex led his strike force through the outer defenses of Coriolis Prime using a combination of captured Federation identification codes and human innovation. Their ships looked exactly like routine supply vessels, but their holds were filled with Coalition special forces instead of cargo. "Outer perimeter cleared," reported Commander Sarah Kim from her position aboard the disguised assault ship. "Federation? Traffic control is routing us toward the government district. They have no idea what's coming. Phase 2, Alex ordered. Begin the infiltration." Coalition forces emerged from their hiding places throughout the Federation capital city, moving toward predetermined targets with military precision. Human commandos used their phase technology to bypass security systems that had been considered impregnable. Melodian infiltrators used their natural abilities to blend their songs with the city's ambient noise, becoming virtually invisible to Federation surveillance. The real battle began when Chancellor Vorthak realized what was happening. Federation military forces throughout the galaxy were under attack, but the most dangerous assault was happening in his own capital city. "Impossible," Vorthak snarled as reports flooded in of Coalition forces appearing throughout Coriolis Prime. "How did they penetrate our defenses?" "The same way they've been penetrating everything else." Admiral Corthex replied via emergency transmission from his own besieged position. "They use our own technology against us. Every advantage we thought we had has become their weapon." Through the city's main communication center, Alex Park broadcast a message that reached every Federation world simultaneously. "Citizens of the galaxy, you are not alone. The Federation's age of oppression is ending. Join us and help build something better." The war had begun in earnest, and for the first time in centuries, the Federation faced an enemy that refused to be intimidated, eliminated, or controlled. The coalition had evolved beyond mere resistance. They had become a force for liberation that would reshape the galaxy itself. The quantum virus laboratory deep beneath Coriolis Prime hummed with deadly purpose as Chancellor Vorthak entered the final access codes. Around him, the Federation capital burned under coalition assault. But he remained focused on the one weapon that could still save their perfect order. "The harmony frequencies are aligned," reported Dr. Zenth, the head scientist whose research had made the impossible weapon possible. "One activation pulse will reach every inhabited system in the galaxy. No species will remain unchanged." Above ground, Alex Park led coalition forces through the burning streets toward the government complex. The battle for the Federation capital had raged for 6 hours, with neither side able to claim decisive victory. But Alex knew the real prize wasn't the buildings or even the government. It was stopping whatever desperate plan the Federation Council was implementing in their final moments. "Maya, what's the status on that quantum signature you detected?" Alex spoke into his communicator while taking cover behind a destroyed Federation hover tank. "It's getting stronger," Dr. Okoffer replied from her position aboard the Coalition. Command ship. The energy patterns match theoretical models for large-scale genetic manipulation. "If I'm right, they're preparing to deploy the Harmony virus." Michael Reynolds, Captain David Reynolds' son, who had spent his entire life preparing for this moment, emerged from a side alley with his assault team. "The government complex is heavily defended, but we found service tunnels that lead to the underground levels. If that's where they're hiding their weapon, we can reach it." Alex studied the tactical display on his wrist unit. Coalition forces were making progress throughout the city, but Federation reinforcements were arriving from other systems. They had hours at most before the balance shifted back in favor of their enemies. "Take your team and stop whatever they're doing down there," Alex ordered. "The rest of us will keep the Federation forces busy up here." Michael nodded and disappeared back into the tunnel system with his commandos. These were humans who had been born for war, raised on stories of their grandparents' betrayal, and trained to fight enemies who considered themselves superior in every way. Deep underground, Chancellor Vorthak watched the final preparations with growing satisfaction. The coalition might control the surface, but victory would ultimately belong to whoever controlled the future. The Harmony virus would end the chaos of independent thought, replacing it with perfect cooperation under Federation guidance. "Beginning final sequence," Dr. Zenth announced. "Quantum matrix is stable. Harmonic frequencies locked onto all known DNA patterns in our database. What about the unknown species?" Vorthak asked. "The coalition includes groups we haven't fully cataloged. The virus will adapt. It's designed to recognize and modify any genetic pattern that displays aggressive or innovative tendencies. Within hours of deployment, every thinking being in the galaxy will be permanently pacified." Vorthak's 3 eyes gleamed with anticipation. The Federation had spent centuries maintaining order through careful balance and controlled elimination of threats. A Harmony virus would make such crude methods unnecessary. There would be no more rebellions, no more unexpected innovations, no more chaos. "Sir," a technician called out nervously, "I'm detecting unauthorized access to the facility. Someone is using Federation security codes." Before Vorthak could respond, the laboratory's blast doors exploded inward. Michael Reynolds and his team poured through the breach, their weapons already targeting the virus deployment system. "Step away from the controls," Michael ordered, his voice carrying the same determination that had driven his father to defy the Federation decades earlier. Vorthak smiled coldly. "You're too late, human. The activation sequence has already begun. In less than 5 minutes, your precious coalition will become willing servants of the Federation." "Then we have 5 minutes to stop it," Michael replied. The battle for the laboratory was brutal and quick. Federation guards fought desperately to protect their ultimate weapon, while Coalition commandos used every advantage they had learned in their years of guerrilla warfare. Human phase technology allowed them to appear behind enemy positions, Melodian sonic weapons disrupted Federation equipment. Builder explosives brought down sections of the underground complex. During the chaos, Dr. Zenth tried to complete the activation sequence manually. His hand was inches from the final control when a human commando's blast sent him sprawling across the laboratory floor. 30 seconds to activation, the automated system announced in cold, mechanical tones. Michael looked around the laboratory in desperation. The quantum virus device was beyond anything human technology could safely dismantle in the time remaining. But as his gaze fell on the harmonic frequency generators that powered the system, he remembered something Maya had taught him about Federation technology. It uses quantum harmonics to spread, Michael realized aloud. That means it needs perfect frequency alignment? He raised his weapon toward the primary harmonic generator. Everyone take cover. The explosion that followed sent shockwaves through the entire underground complex. The quantum virus device screamed as its delicate frequency matrices collapsed. Its energy discharge lighting up the laboratory like a miniature star before dying into sparking wreckage. Activation sequence terminated, the computer announced with what almost sounded like disappointment. Harmony protocol failed. Chancellor Vorthok stared at the destroyed weapon in stunned silence. Centuries of research, the Federation's ultimate solution to the chaos of independent thought, had been reduced to smoking debris by a handful of humans who refused to accept defeat. You have no idea what you've done, Vorthok whispered. The galaxy needs order. Without the Federation's guidance, civilization will collapse into chaos. Michael stepped closer to the defeated Chancellor, his expression showing no sympathy for the architect of so much suffering. Maybe chaos is better than your kind of order. Maybe beings deserve the right to make their own mistakes instead of having their thoughts controlled by people who think they know better. Above ground, Alex received Michael's signal that the virus had been destroyed just as Federation reinforcements began their final assault on the Coalition positions. But the signal they had been waiting for came not from their own forces, but from across the galaxy. Alex, Maya's voice crackled through the communicator with barely contained excitement. We're receiving reports from every system we liberated. Local populations are rising up everywhere. The Federation garrison forces are being overwhelmed by their own citizens. On world after world, species that had lived under Federation control for generations were finally seeing proof that resistance was possible. The Coalition's demonstration at Coriolis Prime had provided the spark, but the fire of rebellion was spreading through populations that had been waiting decades for someone to show them the way. What about Federation fleet movements? Alex asked as he led his forces in a fighting retreat toward their extraction point. That's the beautiful part, Maya replied. They're pulling back to defend their core worlds. For the first time in Federation history, they're on the defensive. The evacuation from Coriolis Prime was chaotic but successful. Coalition forces had achieved their primary objectives, destroying the quantum virus and proving that the Federation could be defeated on their own ground. As their ships pulled away from the burning capital, Alex watched the planet shrink in the distance and thought about everything that had led to this moment. 6 months later, Alex stood in the assembly hall of New Geneva Station, a Coalition facility built in the ruins of an abandoned Federation outpost. Representatives from 47 liberated worlds had gathered to establish the framework for a new kind of galactic government. We propose the Free Worlds Alliance, announced President Martinez, a human diplomat who had spent years in Federation prisons before the liberation. Voluntary cooperation between independent species with no central authority empowered to dictate how others should live. The debate that followed was chaotic, passionate, and sometimes heated. Species that had lived under rigid control for centuries struggled to understand concepts like voluntary cooperation and individual rights. But slowly, painfully, beautifully, a new form of civilization began to take shape. Not all Federation species chose to join the alliance. Some retreated to their core worlds, maintaining their old systems on a smaller scale. Others split apart, with younger generations embracing freedom while older ones clung to familiar hierarchies. The galaxy became more complex, more diverse, and infinitely more chaotic than it had been under Federation rule. But it was also more alive. Years later, as human exploration ships pushed beyond the former Federation borders into unknown regions of space, they carried with them a simple message for any civilizations they might encounter. Cooperation was possible without submission. Order could exist without oppression, and the greatest strength came not from controlling others but from inspiring them to be their best selves. The Age of Empires was ending. The Age of Alliance had begun. And in the deep archives of New Geneva Station, where the records of humanity's long journey from victim to liberator were carefully preserved, children from dozens of worlds learned the story of how the galaxy discovered that some things were worth fighting for, no matter the cost. Freedom was one of those things, hope was another, and the courage to stand up to impossible odds when others needed help was perhaps the most important of all. The Federation had tried to eliminate humanity because they were too dangerous to control. They had been right about the danger, but wrong about the solution. Humanity's greatest threat to oppressive order wasn't their capacity for violence or their technological innovation. It was their absolute refusal to let others suffer the fate that had once been intended for them.